Welcome. My name's Judah, along with my wife and an amazing team. We get to serve here at Church Home. We're so glad that you are here today. And it's always just a really big deal to us that you take time out of your life, whether you're here in the auditorium in LA. There are people watching from Seattle or even online to take time to be with us, to consider the story of God, to consider leaning in to relationships and friendships here in our community. It's just a big deal. Also really cognizant tonight of anyone, if this is your first time here at Church Home, it's just really cool that you risk being here and just sharing this space with us. It's really cool. And we have not sacrificed any cats for several weeks now, so that I'm kidding, and I love cats from afar. I'm allergic. But found out two of my boys are allergic. Two of my boys, I only have two boys. So both my boys are allergic. But anyways, that's beside the point. Now, it's a big deal that you're here. You're going to find out real quick. I'm a Jesus guy. Believe that Jesus is God and that He's completely changed my life. But by no means does Church Home exist to pressure anyone into any sort of belief system. This is a space that welcomes human beings. You are of infinite value before God. You really, really are important. We love you. Consider it an honor, again, that you'd take time to share your Wednesday or Sunday or any day online to gather with us. So really awesome. Thanks so much for being here. We're in the middle, right smack dab in the middle of the 6-week journey, and it's a study on the subject of faith, what it looks like to trust God, to live a life with God, to trust Him in your everyday life. And the 6-week journey for us is a journey that we go on for 6 weeks as a community from Seattle to LA, and everyone who joins us on the Church Home Global app. And over 50,000 people now are joining us on the app. Did you know that? It's pretty exciting. So thanks for accessing that. There's content on there, and there's videos, particularly during these 6 weeks, for conversations and people getting together and just growing and encouraging one another. So, Hebrews chapter 11. Today, we look at Mo. We look at Moses. Are you ready? Yeah, okay. Just about as ready as you were for the Super Bowl. Okay. It's cold here right now. But I must say it is not as cold as Seattle. Have you seen what has happened in Seattle? Seattle, I love you. It is snow everywhere. It's unbelievable. So stay warm, Seattle. It's cold here too. It's like 64. Okay. Hebrews Chapter 11. It says this: by faith Moses, when he was born, was hidden for 3 months by his parents because they saw that the child was beautiful, or that he was special. He was graced by God. That's something, they had a sense that Moses was going to be great. And they were not afraid of the king's edict. Going on, by faith Moses, when he was grown up, he refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to be mistreated with the people of God than to enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. He considered the reproach of Jesus, or Christ, greater wealth than the treasures of Egypt, for he was looking to the reward. Now, hopefully the blanks are being filled in because you've watched The Prince of Egypt. By faith, you're like, oh, that's the guy. Yeah. By faith, he left Egypt, not being afraid of the anger of the king, for he endured. He endured. We today are going to talk about the all-popular subject of endurance. You're like, and this is the day I invited my friend. This is probably the sexiest sermon in the 6-week journey. We're going to talk about endurance. Just sticking at it. He endured as seeing him who is invisible. Hebrews 11:27. For context, just before we pray and get this party started, it is it would just be helpful for all of us to kind of get on the same page real quick. This is written by an unknown author. We know that it's inspired by God, and it's written to first century Jews who have come up under the tyranny of Rome. And it's gotten bad. In fact, it's gone from bad to worse. Any Jews that are professing or accepting that Jesus is God, that Jesus is the only one that can save them from their error, their wrong, and their sin, that Jesus died on the cross, was buried 3 days later, was resurrected, in which there was hundreds of eyewitnesses, and this is now, this message has spread, by the way, like wildfire in the known world, and there are not just non-Jewish believers, but there are Jewish believers who are accepting that Jesus is the promised Messiah, and all of a sudden, in the time in which they are living now, they are not only being persecuted, they are being executed, they are being ostracized, they are being marginalized, they are being ignored in the marketplace, their businesses are being shut down. It is not going well for Jesus followers. It is for that reason the writer of Hebrews writes to these groups of Jewish, first century Jewish believers, and essentially in multiple chapters says, whatever you do, don't go back to the old life. Continue on in following Jesus. By the time we look at all the old heroes of the faith, the most famous Jewish heroes from the Old Testament, and it is the intention of the writer of Hebrews to speak to his Jewish audience by going back in time to say, look at Abraham, he was anticipating Jesus. Look at Enoch, look at Abel, look at Rahab, they were all looking for Jesus, and now Jesus has come, so let's continue to follow Jesus. By the time we get to one of the most famous people in all the Bible, Moses, it becomes clear that the writer of Hebrews is going to remind us how much Moses endured. Endured or endured? How do you say it? I will vacillate between the two tonight to please everyone. Judah, that's weird. But he's going to show us that Moses has incredible endurance. Why? Because he anticipated a Messiah, a Savior that would come, Jesus. And of course, it is a way for the writer of Hebrews to say to these persecuted first century Jewish believers, you are going to need endurance in these times. I would like to suggest today that you need endurance as well. In fact, I'd like over the next few minutes to prove to you that endurance is incredibly underrated. It's an underrated skill in life. The ability to stay where you are, the ability to keep progressing, the ability to keep at it, the ability to not turn around, to not go back, to not give up is very underrated. And while we're on the topic, just for fun, because it's always fun to do this, when looking for a spouse for the rest of your life, might I suggest that you look for someone who kind of sticks with stuff? That might benefit you long term. See what I did there? Okay, so that's probably underrated. Is that fair to say? That you look for someone who's good at sticking with beliefs, things, projects, whatever it might be, in endurance. Will you pray with me? God, I ask that you bless these few moments that we do have. It is a little chilly today, so please warm it up in here. And thank you for your grace and your love and the football season that will be next year. And Lord, we will not speak of the team that shall not be mentioned that keeps winning because the league is fixed. In Jesus' name, and everyone said amen. 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 Endurance. Now, everybody speaks from their context, right? So I'm 40, and the older I get, right? There's a reason I like endurance, because I've been married 19 years. And I'm going to be honest with you, I appreciate that. There's few things I'm more proud of than that. In fact, Chelsea and I will be in discussion sometimes, and I'll be like, girl, I've been at this 19 years, right? Like, it's such a great line. It feels so good. And when we hit 20, I will be perfect strangers on the street. How are you? Been married 20 years. God bless. Honestly, you better steer clear of me. By the time I hit 20, I'm going to be the guy who offers people advice when they don't even ask for it. I'm like, being married 2 decades, what I've learned, right? Because you get older and you're like, you know what? It's kind of cool. Like, I've been doing this for a while. I got hired at Church Home when I was 19. I'm 40. That feels kind of nice, right? I've been pastoring almost as long as Tom Brady's been in the NFL, right? Endurance, eventually, it kind of speaks for itself. You run into people and, come on, we've all been there, and whatever it is, I don't know if it's somebody doing your nails, or if it's somebody giving you a massage, or if it's somebody working on your teeth, or somebody cutting your hair, but have you ever asked somebody how long you've been doing this? And they say, I started about 6 months ago. You're like, oh, look, I got it. Hold on a second. I don't need a haircut anymore. Because when they say 25 years, you're like, well, that kind of speaks for itself. We live in a really unusual culture because we don't like endurance. No one wants to talk about it. Like I know exactly how to write a book that no one will read. Name it Endurance. How to just stick with stuff you're doing. I don't think anyone's like, oh, yes. Right, like it's not like there's a ton of topics if you're a public speaker to go with. I don't think choosing endurance is like top shelf. It's funny, we don't, it's not sexy, it's not fun, it's not like, it doesn't sell magazines, but boy, when you run into somebody who can follow through, is faithful, sticks with things, does what they say, doesn't back down, doesn't give up, it's just flat out attractive is what it is. Run into somebody who's like, 45 years, I stuck with it. And there's just something noble about it that I think if we're all honest, we kind of go, man, I kind of wish I could. So tonight I want to help you grow in the area of sticking with stuff. How do you stick with what you start? And more specifically, how do you keep following Jesus on the days where it feels like Jesus is as real as Alf in the sitcom? Can you believe that just came out? Y'all remember Alf? There are days where God feels as real as Batman. And it's like, I can't, or like our brothers and sisters living in the first century, since they decided to start following Jesus, things have not gotten worse. They've gotten worse than worse. And so the writer says you're going to need to endure. Endure, implicit in the definition of endure, is also, it's when you stick with stuff when you don't feel like it. But have you ever met someone, you're like, well, you're just kind of a stick-to-it person. And I think that's what we do. When it comes to endurance, we're like, well, there's those people back to the real world, okay? If things get hard, I quit. You're a quitter. Yeah, I am. And I am going to be fine tomorrow. But what if tonight we could join the audience of persecuted, tormented, marginalized, overlooked first century Jewish believers who believe in Jesus, like many of us in this room in Seattle and around the world, we believe in Jesus, but life is getting difficult. Life is getting hard. And the last thing you want somebody to say to you is, you just need endurance. And you're like, and you just need to shut up. Right? Because I don't want to stick with it. So what? So if we can join that audience tonight, let's listen to the writer of Hebrews as he goes back in time, way back in time, to pull out one of the great Jewish heroes of all time, Moses, and use Moses as an example. How is it that Moses has such extraordinary endurance? How is it? You want to talk about calamity? You want to talk about challenge? You want to talk about difficult choices? You want to talk about whether or not you're going to live in Egypt in the opulence and comfort and ease and profound luxury, or you're going to join God's people, the enslaved Israelites? I mean, Moses lives a life, man. Moses has some moments. Moses has some seasons. Now keep in mind, you and I might not be as familiar with Exodus, for instance. We may not be as well-versed as the original audience here. Because remember, this original audience would have spent the majority of their childhood and even their adolescence and their teenage years studying the books of Moses. Written by Moses, the first 5 books of the Bible, the Torah. And so this audience would be very familiar now, particularly with Moses. And so what's interesting to me is the writer of Hebrews, inspired by God, starts to pick out a few events from Moses' life to reveal to the audience that Moses too had to endure a lot. But I want to remind you, or I want to try to pull out some points I think we can learn from Moses' journey that the writer of Hebrews wanted the first century Jews to hear, and now God wants you and I to hear, so that endurance is not just left to the elite personalities amongst us, that maybe ordinary people who just run out to the mailbox and back can also develop endurance. And maybe that's a little part of the secret, isn't it? That endurance maybe is developed a little bit. And developing endurance, I don't exactly think is always enjoyable or fun. But before we go any further, again, I would like to reiterate, I think we can all agree that a little more endurance in our life would be a good thing. That a little more stick to it in our experience on earth would be a good thing. That if going forward, you and I could develop more ability, courage, strength, fortitude to stick with what we say and do, our journey on earth might be a little bit better. Our journey on earth might be a little bit better. Frankly, let's get real specific. You'd probably be a better friend. If you're married, I can guarantee if you stick with stuff, you're going to be a better spouse. Man, you want to improve at your workplace and your job, you're going to be a better employee, be a better boss, be a better neighbor. Right? I mean, think about how much endurance could improve your earthly experience. Stick with it. It says again in verse 28, 27, by faith, Moses left Egypt, not being afraid of the anger of the king, for he endured as seeing him who is invisible. I have 5 points, and this might frustrate you, but I'm going to give you 3 today, and maybe more in the future. But we're not going to go to all 5 and pull out just 3 that we're going to cover. And here is, I'm going to frame this, and then I'm going to give you these 3 points. When we see the word faith, I want to remind you what we talked about a few weeks ago. The word faith, for many of us, because of our tradition, our cultural kind of cliches, when I say faith, you think somebody who can risk a lot and trust a lot. But that's actually not a good biblical definition of faith. Faith is a gift from God. It is by grace through faith, which is the gift of God that no one can boast. Let me say this. When it comes to saving faith, faith in a God who's revealed himself in the person of Jesus, you cannot manufacture that faith within yourself. For if you could conjure up that faith within yourself, you would, in essence, save yourself. And the Bible says that's impossible. We're all dead. We're all lost and broken in our error, wrong, selfishness, sin, and trespasses. And so I actually don't have the ability to conjure up faith enough in God to save myself. No, faith is a gift from God. If you look up this word, the most prominent word used for faith in the New Testament in the Greek, it literally means persuaded. It's the actual literal meaning. So every time you see faith, by faith Moses, it's by persuasion Moses. By persuasion Abraham. Now, who's doing the persuading? Moses is not persuading Moses. Moses is being persuaded by God. Let me say this about Church Home. This is a non-manipulation community. If I can talk you into believing in God, you can be talked out of it. This church home does not exist so you can bring your friends so I can convince them logically there is a God, accept him, and start to volunteer in our church. That's weird. That's just custom, tradition, mind over matter, manipulation. The wars of logic. No. It is impossible to please God without faith, divine persuasion. Church Home, one of the foundations of our church is let God be God. My goodness, if there actually is a God, isn't he God enough to persuade people? Right? Like God is good at being God. It is a little ironic that sometimes us little old humans down here defend God. Wait, you don't like Jesus? Why? I think you're wrong. And I'm going to raise my volume. Right? Like, no. Church Home, no one's, our passion, we're not intimidated by anyone who's like, I don't believe in Jesus. I'm like, man, thanks for being honest. That's refreshing. Let's not play pretend. Because if Jesus is God, let him persuade you and me. So I'm here today not just because my dad was a preacher. I'm here today because I have been persuaded. I have been divinely persuaded. What is faith? It is divine persuasion. It's not people persuasion. It's not preacher persuasion. It is divine persuasion. By divine persuasion, Moses lived the life he lived. So I'm going to make this real clear. You want endurance in your life. It's going to be predicated on the fact of God persuading you. You say, well, Judah, you're not giving me a lot to do here. Correct. It's about God. It's through God. It's for God. If you are going to stick with God, your relationship with God, the biggest sticking glue in your relationship is not you. It's God. And I have learned that through many different seasons, I need him, as we said this a few weeks ago, to persuade me again. And there are so many of you here, God knows that you need him to persuade you again. You say, well, I believe in God, I always believe in God, but you need God to persuade you again about the aspects of who he is, what he's capable of, and what he does. Some of us start to conclude based on circumstances, situations, extended seasons, sickness, illnesses, disease, loss, pain, disgruntledness, offense, worry, fear, anxiety. We start to conclude God can't do this, God won't do this, God doesn't do this, and God needs to come again in certain seasons and say, hey, I actually can still do miracles. It's what I've done, it's what I do, it's what I'll keep doing. So we need God to persuade us again. Here's what I think the writer of Hebrews is doing. He's writing to our brothers and sisters living in the first century under the tyranny and persecution of Rome. And he says, I'd like to draw your attention to the birth of Moses. To the birth of Moses, in which Moses had nothing to do with, by the way. which is a little ironic because one translation says, by faith, Moses, when he was born, I'm like, was he born by faith? But it says his parents, watch this. His parents just looked at him and had a sense. Where'd that come from? God. This baby, people argue, doesn't mean he was good looking. I don't think when it says he was beautiful, the point is not that he was good looking. Okay? But the point is he was graced. He was gifted. There was something special about this boy. His parents hide him from the edict. And what's interesting, it says they were not afraid of the king's edict. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Pharaoh's edict, not the king's edict. The writer of Hebrews is doing a little wordplay. He's talking, remember his audience, first century Jewish believers under the tyranny of Rome. He's using terms like king to speak to them. Pharaoh wouldn't even been referenced as a king. So he's trying to tell them, hey, there were some edicts back in the day too. And there's some edicts wreaking havoc on your life today. But the first thing that clearly the writer of Hebrews wants the first century Jewish believers to hear is Moses was a miracle. Moses was a miracle baby. Moses was God's miracle baby. Jesus was God's miracle baby. Moses is a type of Jesus. See, Moses grew up, but guess what he grew up being persuaded about? I'm a miracle. Oh, Moses knew his story. Moses was a miracle, and Moses believed he was a miracle. Can I ask you a question? Are you persuaded that you're a miracle? Do you believe you're a miracle? I bet there's 50 reasons why you shouldn't be here tonight. I bet I can come up real quick with 25 reasons you shouldn't be alive. You beat the odds just being here. How many of your moms would be shocked to hear that you are in a gathering of faith tonight? Your mama would be like, what? Not my son. My baby girl? Sweet baby Jesus at church? But just the fact of your existence is a miracle. Do you know what gave Moses a little stick to it? You know what gave Moses endurance? Moses believed he was a miracle. Do you believe you're a miracle? Do you believe that you're chosen? Do you believe that God has carefully crafted your life to ensure that you are alive? Do you believe there's been times God hid you from danger? Because, man, you start walking around these streets talking like you're a miracle, and you'll probably end up sticking with stuff a little more. Now, I understand the way I was raised is extraordinary in terms, I got a head start. Had a mom and a dad who loved me. My dad was my hero. I almost died 3 times before I was 2 years old. And do you know, almost every week of my life, my parents told me, you're a miracle, Judah. In fact, when I got pregnant with you, baby, I started bleeding at 6 months. And the doctor said, you better abort this baby. He's going to have brain damage. He's not going to be healthy. It's not going to be okay. But I prayed, and God says, I'm going to keep you. I'm going to watch over this boy. So I grew up believing. Said, wow, Judah, that's really encouraging. Thank you for telling us the fact that you believe you're a miracle. That's great. No, I'm trying to make a point. You are too. Oh, okay. Thought this was about you. You're a miracle. You're a miracle. You should think about that more. Yeah, I am a miracle. I should, even if I wasn't, I should be out of my mind. I shouldn't be here. Let yourself go there a little bit. Moses did. Moses believed he was chosen. Moses believed that God had a plan for his life. There are people in here, one of the reasons your endurance tank is low is because you just think you are run of the mill. And there's no such thing with God. You are wonderfully, fearfully, and wonderfully, and intricately, and intimately put together by the designer of the ages. He crafted you, he chose you, he wired you, he designed you. You're called, chosen, protected, watched over. By definition, you're a miracle. I wonder if some things could change in your perspective if you left this gathering today actually accepting the fact that you're a miracle. You're a miracle. You're a miracle. If we could talk to your aunt, she'd say you're a miracle. If we could talk to your uncle, if we could talk to your mom, if we could talk to your dad, if we could talk to your grandfather, your grandmother, if we could talk to your neighbor, no, that's the baby I always wanted. That's the grandson I always dreamed about having. That's my miracle baby. That's my. Don't you forget that you are God's miracle baby. You're God's miracle baby. You beat the odds being here, you know. It's amazing. Moses believed that about himself. It goes on, and for sake of time, we won't go through all of the verses and all of the details, but it says, by divine persuasion, Moses grew up, and he refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. Going on, it says, choosing rather to be mistreated with the people of God than to enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. Now, I got to tell you something about these verses. From verses 24 to 25 and 26, for the life of me, I cannot find any record of these instances happening in Exodus. Like, for instance, you don't go back to like Exodus 12. And Moses is like, yo, Pharaoh, you're not even my dad. I want out of here. I don't like my purple robes and my rings and my rubies and my diamonds. I would rather be broke with the servants. Like, there's no we don't have, that never happened. I mean, it did, but I think here's the point. You can't go back to the Torah and be like, oh, that's when Moses did that. Verses 24, 25, and 26, there's a point there. There's always a message in the message. And then if you go back to Exodus, which no doubt the first century Jews were thinking, I don't remember reading that in Exodus. When did he consider the reproach of Jesus? We're talking about Moses. Did you say the reproach of Jesus? And the writer of Hebrews is telling us something. That verses 24 and 25 and 26, which are some of the most potent, powerful statements made about Moses in all of the Bible, they are not big events. They are what happened little by little, day by day. Little by little, day by day. Evidently, there was no one big moment where Moses, like I said, barges in to Pharaoh's inner court in all of his jewelry and stuff and being like, I hate this. I don't want any more record deals. I don't want any more cars. I'm going out to the desert. And I'm done with you. No, it was little by little. He just kept going, no, I'm not going to, no, this isn't me. And I think that's what we think endurance is. These big, massive events where you're like, it's the Alamo for Jesus. And you're just going to stand. It's like some old, big war standoff where you're like, but that's not actually how endurance works. It's not actually how Jesus leads us every day. Endurance is somewhat uneventful. It's just still here. Good morning. Rise and shine. Go to work. Bop, bop, bop. Talk to God. Hey. Say hello. Encourage friends. Say some prayers. Go to bed. Wake up. Good morning. Here again. Da-da-da. This is amazing. And I'm not saying that life is just dull and monotonous and boring. Following Jesus is anything but that. But yeah, endurance isn't this big grand standoff you have with Pharaoh. And you're like, yeah. The camera zooms in, you're like, you better believe it, Pharaoh. Good riddance to you, and I hate mascara. You know, like, I just think over time, Moses, and so later, to be exact, thousands of years later, the writer of Hebrews looks at the body of work of Moses' life, good days and bad days, but he stuck with it. And he says, Moses, I mean, these are radical statements. He gave up the opulence to stand with God and his people. Watch what it says. It's one of the clearest statements about sin. And he chose persecution. He chose to be ostracized over, what does it say? Over the passing pleasures of sin. You want to have some endurance in your relationship with God? My second point. Not only do I believe God's going to persuade you that you are a miracle, but I believe that if God can persuade Moses, he can persuade you and me that the fun of sin is fleeting. And I'm going to say that again because I meant it exactly the way that I said it. That the fun of sin, is there such thing? Oh, yeah. Sin is fun. ... real fast. Sin is fun and fleeting. But that's the problem with sin, right? People are like, I hate sin. I don't know if that's true. Sin's the worst. I mean, I know what you mean. You mean you don't want to keep doing it, but it's fun, so we do. Right? It's ridiculous, but we do. We all do. We're all in this together. Like, church home is not the church where we're like, hey, we got some guests here. They probably struggle with sin, but we don't anymore because we've been here for a minute. Now, we're all in this together, and the reason we keep living like, Judah, I don't like the word sin. It's in the Bible. It means to miss the mark God intended for our lives. Sin is what has plagued the planet. What is sin? It is selfishness. It is decisions based on self, for self. It is error. It is wrong. It is painful. It hurts yourself. It hurts others. Let's not fool ourselves. People say, I do what I want, when I want, how I want, when I want. I just don't hurt nobody. That's a lie. That's impossible. Well, I mean, I don't hurt nobody. Well, I moved to Antarctica and I do my own thing. I don't hurt nobody. Well, you know what? People who love you back in they're hurting because you left. There's no such thing. We are interconnected beings, my brothers and sisters. We are all interconnected one with another. It's just the facts. We were made to be in connection and proximity to other human beings. And so sin is the selfish life. It's just doing what I want when I want, and feelings become your ultimate guide navigating the chaos of the planet. And it's fun. And then it's not. And then it's fun. And then it's not. I'll try it again. Hi-yo! And I got to try something else that looks fun. That's fun. This is fun anymore. And I used to say, working with young people for 10 years, if it's not fun in the morning, is that fun or is that a crude form of torture? We keep telling, man, we having fun. Are we? If it's always just right out of our grasp. And what we're left with is not a wonderful sensation of fulfillment and contentment. Oh, I just feel so full. Really? Yeah, honestly. Tell me if you've ever heard this statement. Pornography has improved my overall well-being 25%. Oh, my word. What are you so happy about? Porn? Oh, man. I'm so much more social. Yeah. Porn has made me so caring and considerate when I go on dates and stuff. And who are we fooling? Who are we fooling? I mean, we got enough science now that's telling us that people are like, sin's not real. We got stuff to tell us that we're hurting our brains out here. Right? I mean, it's just the facts. But we all are still, I'm not just talking to somebody like, did this turn into like a session on porn? Because I feel uncomfortable. Nah, we moving on, relax. But we're all drawn to, anybody ever have one of those lights on your porch that gets the flies? You remember those? Some of you like, what world were you raised in, Jude? But growing up, right, in Portland, Oregon, and we get one, and zzz, and it's like, oh, got another fly. That's good. Zzz, got another bug. You know the problem with those things is the bug sees the light, and it's like, oh, pretty light. And that's sin. It's like, oh, I love this place. Oh, it's amazing. It's just fleeting. And somewhere along the line, Moses grew in his ability to stick with the plan of God for his life because maybe he just looked around and was like, everybody's waking up sad. Everybody's mad. Everybody's broken. These parties are not what we think they are. This is fleeting. And Moses is like, no, I don't want to give my life to what's fleeting. I don't want to give my life to what's fake. I don't want to give my best years of my life to what fizzles out and leaves me with nothing at the end of my evenings, afternoons, or mornings. I don't want what's fleeting. I want what's real, even if that's harder and it hurts more. I want what lasts. I want what lasts. That's what I want. And so one of my prayers for our church is, Lord, then God, persuade us that the fun of sin is fleeting. I need you to persuade me again. Because if you're like me, sins that tempt you, it is amazing how you can't recall how fleeting it was last time. Then you keep telling yourself, now this time's gonna be different. Now, we usually don't say that out loud because our friends will be like, and you're an idiot. Right? Like you've been in a small group during the 6-week journey and be like, hey guys, I'm gonna do it one more time because I'm pretty sure this one's gonna last forever. And they're gonna be like, no, it's not. There's not a person under the sound of my voice from Seattle to Los Angeles to anywhere watching on this app who hasn't had a lot of these moments. Oh man, I feel gross. I should have never said that. I should have never done that. I should not have gone there. I should have, man, what? I did it again? What am I doing? You know what we need to ask? We need to ask the God of Moses, if you can persuade a man admit the opulence of Egypt and all of its luxuries and temptations and opportunities, God, if you can do it for the Prince of Egypt, you can do it for me. Persuade me again that the fun of sin is fleeting. Persuade me, persuade me, persuade me, persuade me. And by the way, when you don't feel as persuaded, find somebody who currently is pretty persuaded. It's not complicated. That's why we do community. It's like, hey, I'm really low on my persuasion that the fun of sin is fleeting. How are you doing? I'm feeling pretty good. All right, let's have a coffee. And relationship is so important, and I'm done. I'll end right here. Something strange happens in in the text. And it says in the last verse that we're studying tonight, it says, verse 27, by faith, Moses left Egypt not being afraid of the anger of the king, for he endured, seeing him who is invisible. Now, I read that and I was like, okay, hold on a second. He left Egypt not being afraid. I was like, ooh. Went back to Exodus 2, and here's what I found. Exodus chapter 2. One day when Moses had grown up, he went out to his people and looked on their burdens, and he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his people, and he looked this way, and seeing no one, he struck down the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. When he went out the next day, behold, two Hebrews were struggling together, and he said to the men in the wrong, why do you strike your companion, your fellow Hebrew brother? He said, and who made you a prince and judge over us? Do you mean to kill me as you killed the Egyptian? And then Moses was afraid and thought, surely the thing is known. When Pharaoh heard of it, he sought to kill Moses. Moses fled. Hey, let me read verse 27 in Hebrews again. By faith, he left Egypt not being afraid. Not being afraid. But the story in Exodus says he was afraid. So I started thinking about this. I'm like, okay, what's trying to be said? Is there a contradiction here? Or is there a tension here that would tell us something about the human condition in which Jesus can transform and empower us? No, it is very abundantly clear to me that the writer of Hebrews, these first century Jewish believers, they know good and well that story where Moses stood up for a Hebrew and then killed him and hit him in the sand. That's famous. And they know good and well that the word got out, and so Moses was scared and he took off. They know that story. And yet the writer of Hebrews says, he left Egypt, but he wasn't afraid. And the first century Jews must have been like, excuse me, I know that story. I saw the cartoon. He was scared. Yeah? There was fear. But here's what I believe the writer of Hebrews is saying. There was fear. See, a lot of people believe endurance or a life of divine persuasion is the absence of fear in your life. Some of you, the reason you struggle in sticking to it when it comes to your relationship with God is the moment that fear is a factor in your life, you beat yourself up. You say, oh, there it is. I'm not Moses. I'm not like Abraham. I got all this fear. And you are incarcerated by fear and worry and anxiety. It is one of the top prayer requests in our church. Crippled by fear. Here's what happened in Moses' life, and it can happen in yours. God persuaded Moses that he was more real than his fear. He said, and he saw him who is invisible, which is to say, an eloquent way of saying, Moses concluded that God was more persuasive than his fear, that God is bigger than his fear, that God is stronger than his fear, and God can overcome his fear and overwhelm his fear. So you got fear. Welcome to the party. Welcome to the party. Right? We all got fears. And I'm by no means minimizing your fear. I'm simply telling you there is a God who is more real than your fear. He's more real than your fear. He can minimize your fear. He can put your fear in its proper place. He can tell you can keep moving even with the fear talking in the back seat. You're not going to make it. This isn't going to be good. Well, you can keep talking, fear. I know you're there, and you just remind me how much I need God because I'm going to keep moving. I'm going to stick to it. I know I'm afraid. Fear's a little bigger today than it was yesterday, but that's okay because God is more real than my fear. And so then the writer of Hebrews says thousands of years later, Abraham wasn't really afraid. I mean, he had fear, but God was more real than his fear, and so he followed God anyway. I got so many fears in leadership. Are you kidding me? I got all kinds of fears. Every day I got fears just like you and me. I got fears just like you and me. That's a little bit redundant there, preacher. Yeah. Can we just dispel this idea? There's an elite crew amongst our church who's like, I got no fear. No, I have a long list of them. Now, I try not to listen to them. I try not to feed them. I try not to be proud of them. I try not to make them my best friends. Hey, fears, come on, want to hang? I've never got much traction with any fear I've had by focusing on it and trying to get rid of it. Hey, sit down, fear. I don't like you around very much. You're not very nice. You enter situations at the most inopportune time. So I need you to go away and play nice. Focusing on fear usually only grows my fear. No, I need a God, maker of heaven and earth, to come and persuade me. I know that's there. God, have you seen the fear? I got a lot of fears, and I've had some scars growing up, and this happened to me, and I got all these fears. And God's like, I know. And I think sometimes we think God uses people when he takes all their fears away. And you're like, someday I'm going to be like so-and-so who has no fear, and that's why they do what they do. And that's not true. We all got fear. It's just that over time, God's so gracious and persuasive. He says, hey, what is it? Just look over here. Yeah, but there's all these fears. I know. Just look at me. Look how big I am. Look how strong I am. Look at my history. Look at my body of work. Look at what I do. Hey, son, just keep looking at me. Keep looking at me. I know, but just keep looking at me. Just keep looking at me. And over time, God is so persuasive. This is what he does. If he did it for Moses, he can do it for you. My brothers and sisters, I promise I'm done. I'm coming to a close. It's the end of my message. You have to understand for a moment, let's have some empathy. Let's consider the actual legitimate plight of first century Jewish believers living under the tyranny of Rome who are starting to wonder, will I make it another day? Will I even have a future? Will I have an income? Will I have a home? Will there be food on the table for my baby? That is fear. And I might add, that's fear with a little bit of facts behind it. Like, God, if they keep killing us, what? And the writer of Hebrews says, Moses just kept focusing on God and kept trusting and realized that no matter what, even if some of these fears are legitimate and factual and some bad stuff's happening, that you're going to be with him forever. And so the ultimate truth is Jesus. So just focus on him. Focus on him. I don't want to be a part of a church where we just tolerate ever-increasing, growing terror and fear. I want to be a part of a place that actually believes in a great, big, awesome, strong, powerful, sovereign God who can say, excuse me, I'd like your attention here. A place where fear, maybe it's never eradicated completely, but it diminishes at least a little bit year by year. I don't give it nearly as much attention as I used to because God has my attention. Oh, I got a hunch. We're all going to have our bouts with fear in the years ahead. But I just wonder if God could get bigger and our fears could get smaller. That's the kind of community I want to be a part of. Ha-ha! Let us consider with all the saints the height, the width, the length, the depth of his love for us so that we might have endurance. And we might have endurance. I believe it. In 2019, you're going to develop increased endurance because of the sovereignty, goodness, wonderful Jesus. God, we ask that you would take these moments that we're just considering you and help Oh God. Just think about people here in LA, think about people in Seattle, and think about people all over the world. Things that are heavy on their mind and their heart. God, if you can do that for Moses, if you can do that for the Hebrew people living in the first century, you can do it for us today. You can grant us supernatural endurance, ability to stick with it, trust you. Trust you. I know this may sound odd, but there's somebody here listening to me right now. You have made plans to make a very significant decision in regards to crossing a line that you know you shouldn't cross. It's a decision that you have pre-planned, and you have talked yourself into a place where you've made all the preparations to follow through with this decision. And I believe that God is right now intervening, and he's stopping this whole thing from Seattle to LA online to tell you that there is a better way and that he will persuade you that the fun of sin is fleeting. And it is not too late. It is not too late to change your plan. Furthermore, I believe there are people here who just got done making a decision. Might have been a financial decision, a moral decision that you knew crossed a line. You don't know why you had that line in your heart to begin with, but you knew you compromised your standard, and it's been eating you alive. It is not too late for God to restore to you a sense of love, forgiveness, and a returning of who you really are, who you really are, who you really are. You're God's miracle child. You're God's miracle baby. That's who you are. And God has plans to prosper you, not to harm you, to give you a future and a hope. Thank you, God. If you're here in LA or Seattle or anywhere watching, and you said, Jude, I'd like to become a follower of Jesus, I want to pray for you. I want to pray for you right now. For the Bible says, God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him will not perish, but have everlasting life. If you'd like to exercise your free will to become a follower of Jesus, I want to pray for you right here, right now. On the count of 3, I'm going to ask you to lift up your hand and put it right back down. If you would like to make a decision to become a follower of Jesus, to become a follower of Jesus. If that's you, on the count of 3, just slip up your hand, put it right back down. 1, 2, 3. If that's you, just shoot your hand up. In this room, other rooms in Seattle, even those watching online, you slip up your hand and say, that's me, I receive. God, you see all these hands. You see all these hearts. And your forgiveness flows freely. And we thank you for that right now in the name of Jesus. Thank you for new beginnings, new starts. Thank you that you paid the ultimate price. You became sin so that we could become right with God. And we thank you for that. And God, I declare over Church Home, we are going to be a place of endurance. You are strengthening us and enabling us to stick with it. We thank you for that day by day, moment by moment, minute by minute. We thank you for your supernatural grace in Jesus' name, in Jesus' name. If you're able and willing, would you stand with us? And let's join Philip and the team. Let's use music as a point of connection. Come on, church.
Hey, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. We really hope it encouraged you and maybe gave you a little something to think about through the day. Hey, if you want to watch more, you can subscribe, and please watch the most recent video. We love you. We believe for great things for your life.